There are some major changes potentially coming to the Apple Watch lineup, and not just with this year's upcoming Apple Watch Series 12, but the future. And that future might actually be round. So let's walk through a few things. And first, the more grounded stuff that we're expecting from the Series 12, which should happen in just a couple of months, actually less than a month. And then the wilder rethink that Gurman is now reporting, which could shape the entire Apple Watch lineup down the road. So, according to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, with the latest on his Power On newsletter, Apple is planning to bring back the ceramic Apple Watch case, possibly as soon as this year, although it could slip into 2027. If you've been around Apple Watches for a while, you know the ceramic edition has a pretty good history. Apple first introduced it with the Series 2 back in September of 2016, and it replaced the original gold edition model that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So this brought the price down to something reasonable, about $1,249. That white ceramic finish was made from a compressed zirconia and alumina powder that got polished with a diamond slurry, and Apple marketed it as being about 4 times as hard as stainless steel. They added a gray option with the Series 3, but then the whole edition line vanished for the Series 4 in 2018. White ceramic came back briefly with the Series 5, and then Apple killed it off again entirely with the Series 6 in 2020. So it's been gone for over 6 years now, and in that time, it has quietly become one of the most sought-after finishes for collectors on the resale market. And if it does really return, that is genuinely pretty exciting. I never got one. I've always wanted one, and I do want to get one, so I'm hoping it does make a comeback. Now, beyond the ceramic story, the rest of the Series 12 picture is a bit more modest. And I want to be honest here, Gurman describes the Series 12 and the Ultra 4 as continuing the trend of the latest modest upgrades, with the under-the-hood improvements being the main headline. The big one there is performance, which almost certainly points to a new chip. And that actually matters more than it sounds because the last 2 Apple Watch generations have still been running on the same chip, so the S10 chip. And that S10 is basically unchanged from the S9, which came out all the way back in 2023. So we could finally be looking at an actual meaningful performance jump after what has effectively been the same Apple Silicon for years on this watch. On top of that, Gurman says this year's models will bring new colors and band options along with a number of new health and fitness upgrades. And timing-wise, the Series 12 and Ultra 4 are expected to show up next month alongside the iPhone 18 Pro, the 18 Pro Max, and Apple's first foldable, the iPhone Ultra. So busy fall as usual. That's the near term, but the long term is what gets more interesting here and a lot more speculative. In that same reporting, Mark Gurman is saying that Apple is genuinely reevaluating the entire Apple Watch lineup and looking at a host of radical new designs. And he does not frame this as a small tweak. He compares it to the revolutionary design change that the foldable iPhone represents, calling it something that will transform the product for a new era. And his words there mean a significant revamp could actually go from not only just the iPhone, but also to the Apple Watch. So what is actually on the table? A couple of things. Apple's industrial design team has reportedly been exploring a broader rethink of its smartwatches for a while now, with several different directions that's being weighed at once. One of the biggest drivers is the resurgence of fitness bands without screens. I'm wearing one here. This is the Fitbit Air. Also, smart rings. I used to wear an Oura ring. Those have been tremendously popular. Sometimes people just don't want screens, or they want things that they can easily sleep with or, wear without them being, in the way. Apple is apparently taking that very seriously, enough that it's considering an Apple Watch-style device with no display at all, which is a obviously real departure. Alongside that, they are looking at new Apple Watches with different types of screens and various new sizes. There could be a round one, which I have been wanting since forever. Gurman does say that Apple has been contemplating giving the Apple Watch a round display, but he's very careful to caution. Unfortunately, the bad news here is that a device like that is probably unlikely to ship. So you need to temper your expectations, or at least I need to tell myself that because I got really excited when I saw this. It's more that Apple has been willing to explore it than any sign of it's actually coming, but at least that's progress. There's also talk of a new premium variant that would sit above the Ultra and the Hermes models, and on the flip side, even more affordable options below the SE, so potentially a much wider range at both ends. So underpinning all of this is obviously the strategy shift. Apple has not settled on a direction yet, but the reporting says the company is determined to reinvent the lineup in response to growing competition. Part of that plan is making its wearables far more AI focused, with the ambitious long-term plans to revamp the health app. And the business reason behind it is pretty clear. Apple is hoping to reinvigorate its wearables, home, and accessories segment, which has kind of struggled to generate real growth over the last few years. And obviously with the Apple Watches, those modest upgrades have been just that. They've been very small bumps. Sometimes you can't even really tell the difference between the last few models, honestly, if you put them next to each other. And that's kind of a bummer. So to put it all together, the picture is kind of split. In the short term, the Series 12 looks like another modest upgrade, unless we get the ceramic edition to return. That could be a nice little major shift here. But otherwise, for the rest of it, it's just going to be kind of the same. But the bigger story comes at what Apple is looking at in the future. Potentially a rounder display or no display at all, and going with the, kind of Fitbit Air aspect. But I would love to hear from you in the comments down below what you think about all of this and the Apple Watch rumors that are happening right now with the Series 12 on the horizon and then these potential new models or new wearables in the future. So let me know in those comments down below. This has been Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.